Hi, welcome to Racehouse with me, Jolie.
And me, Darren Reeves.
Well, that's a hell of a delay, but we're going to battle through that. And we are,
Wow.
exhausted. End of a season. And, I don't know what to say. It's just been mammoth. It's the biggest Formula One season we've had ever, the most races. It finished in Abu Dhabi and Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. I was very lucky to be there for qualifying and for race day. And let me tell you, Abu Dhabi has a real special place in my heart. It's one of my two local ones, UK and Abu Dhabi. And it's the first one I ever went to, Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, exactly 10 years ago. So it's my 10-year anniversary of going to Formula One races, where the Who did an after-party concert. And this time it was Muse and Eminem. I didn't see Eminem, but I saw Muse last night, and they were fantastic. This race as well, look, Darren, the Drivers' Championship was already sewn up. Max Verstappen had won, and rightly so. He's been phenomenal all year. But this was the race about who would get that Constructors' Championship. Was it McLaren or was it Ferrari?
Well, Joe, I've got to say, and I can see your shirt on there, who exactly you were supporting. And I was too, Joe. McLaren and Zach Brown with Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri have been awesome this year. We didn't expect it. We saw Max Verstappen win 4 out of the first 5 races, with Ferrari winning in Melbourne. But ever since Lando Norris took the lead in Miami, race 6 of 24, they've never looked back. I think they've been absolutely fantastic. Their upgrades that they bring to the track, every single one of them has worked. This year, we also saw it last year as well, second half of the season, when they came to Austria and Silverstone with upgrades. We went, oh, what's going on here? They have been one of the most improved teams since Zach Brown took over as CEO back in 2017. They were 9th in the Constructors' Championship that year. And they had drivers like Fernando Alonso there, brilliant drivers. But Zach Brown, mate, he loved it on the podium yesterday, didn't he? If you've seen the TV footage, he was a monster up there. He has earned it. They were brilliant, and I'm so, so pleased for it. My son, Lucas, is a Ferrari fan, so we had a little bit of opposite allegiances yesterday, but with Leclerc's penalty because of the new battery pack, it obviously put him to the back of the grid. But you've got to say, what a brilliant drive by Leclerc, as well. So Ferrari, if they'd have won it, they would have deserved it as well, because they have been brilliant too. But McLaren, mate, amazing. And Joe, you were there to witness it, and I was very jealous yesterday because obviously I was with you last year in Abu Dhabi, and seeing your photos you were sending me yesterday, I was very jealous, and it was miserable weather here too.
Well, let's zoom into that. And let's talk about the experience. So I went to Quali with my cousin Liam, who's been on the podcast before.
Yep.
And it was his first ever time to go down to an F1 race. So we got a great little spot. And it's difficult when you're trackside and the signal is terrible because you've got 400,000 people on their phones, so you can't watch it on TV at the same time. It's very difficult to know what's going on. You need to be kind of near a big screen or near a telly somewhere. But it was great to soak up the atmosphere, and we had a good walk around, and all the boats and everything were in full swing. So, and we had some lovely hospitality of some of the boats that we visited. And then it was about race day. So I went down the race day, called up a couple of friends, a couple of people you met last year, actually.
Yep.
And again, down by the marina, went to our favorite spots. My favorite bit there, which we found, we were walking alongside the track around by the W Hotel, and that's such a lovely bit because the cars slow down, so you really get a great look at those cars. And there's maybe a cheeky overtake moment, or they're just about to get behind them. It's lovely. They zoom out from under that bridge, and then under the pedestrian bridge, which is a great vantage point. So I found myself there for the second half of the race, and just seeing them all come through. And it was amazing because there's so many fans that I was outnumbered. A lot of Ferrari fans, a lot of Spanish people, a lot of Italian people, and the Abu Dhabis, the Emiratis, they really like Ferrari.
Yes. Well, Ferrari World, Joe, as you well know, is right next door, down at the end, down by the sort of first hairpin at the very end of the the first section of the track.
North Stand, yeah.
There we are. You've got it. So yeah, and I was expecting you to say there'd be a lot of Ferrari there, but you know, in the helm of Fred Vasseur, I think he's just doing a fantastic job there. It's just that Zach Brown has been doing it longer at McLaren, so I think they're both on very good trajectories.
But it wasn't guaranteed, and you know, look at the first lap, first corner. What happened there? Oscar basically could have been taken out by Max, you know, and that was a nail-biting moment to think, hold on, this isn't in the bag.
No, I've got a real opinion about it. I think Max is acting a bit arrogant right now. The way that he acted on turn one, he knew McLaren and Ferrari were fighting for the championship, and it was sour grapes a little bit for me that he wasn't fighting for the Constructors' Championship this year. I don't think that's Max's fault at all. I think the team are to blame for that, and it is a team game. But also the way he spoke to the stewards about his 10-second penalty. He said on the comms, he said, "Oh well, give us a 20-second one. Why not?" You know, he was just quite arrogant, quite rude. And there's been some talk from George Russell as well about Max bullying some of the drivers, but no one else has spoken up. Come on, Max, you're better than this. You're bigger than this. You are awesome in the car. You have proved it now. And this year, for me, is your championship. You've earned it. The car earned it the previous years, in my mind. But Max, or Michael Massey. But this year, Max, you've won it. You don't need to do this.
No, I don't know. Maybe this is going to be something that's going to continue and amplify next year, where it's all changed in the season, but and it really, because cars change, drivers are changing. I don't know. Yeah, I would say that probably his style of driving is bullying. It's strong and dominant, but it's a bullying style. Lewis was never like that. Lewis has always been a gentlemanly driver, I've thought. I've never really seen him do anything. Even the battles with him and Max, I always thought he gave him plenty of space in a lot of those tussles. So, I don't know. That's something to go on. But, I mean, I think the focus of that Max incident was Piastri. I mean, we had a qualifying of McLaren 1-2. I mean, this should have been easy sailing home for McLaren, but it was... I mean, it made great viewing because it was nail-biting. You know, if Norris, basically, it was all on Norris's shoulders. If he hadn't won that race, then I think the maths would have worked out that Ferrari would have won the Constructors' Championship. Am I right in that?
If Ferrari finished, well, if Lando didn't win it, of course, Ferrari would have finished 1 and 2.
Yeah.
All right. Although Lando could have finished second, I suppose. But the mathematics were they were 21 points in the lead, so they had to outscore Ferrari by 23 points. So had Sainz, let's say, won it and Leclerc finished third, that would have been 40 points less the 18. So it would have been 22 points if Lando had come second, not 23. Yeah, and there's a fastest lap as well in there, although Magnussen took that because he went out on soft, so nobody got that point. He took it away from anyone there. Probably trying to take it away from the chance of Gasly getting it for Haas and Alpine getting 6th and 7th. But it was really close, and the slightest little things, and we know the slightest things change it, and we know that happens in Abu Dhabi. So I was there half expecting Stroll or Tsunoda to do something silly. You know, I was like, anything could change and take this away from Lando at any point. And it only takes one back marker to just do something, a mistake. And that's what this championship has come down to. It's been real fine margins, but it's been the development race. And I totally believe for 3 years, this Red Bull has been perfect, needing no development. And the loss of Adrian Newey has meant development's really, really hard at Red Bull.
Well, Newey and many other engineers, they've all been going. But we'll keep it onto the track for a second, because just to go back to Piastri, I thought it was a good battle to come back. I mean, but he had a bit of a strange race. I mean, so many times he nearly lost it and he nearly crashed out. I mean, the
Yeah.
Max incident, he went to the back of Albon. I mean, that was, I don't think Albon was particularly brake testing him. He was watching the car in front because he was
Yeah.
having problems there. Later, he nearly spun it and he recovered well. Luckily, he was on a broad section of the track.
That was just
But
coming up to the hotel, wasn't it? Really, really
yeah,
lucky not to lose that. In it's similar in a way that Max did in qualifying on the last corner, where he went out wide and he was going straight towards the barrier. Just brilliant driving though to recover from it.
it was
Piastri's
brilliant
been
driving.
phenomenal. He's been a
Yeah, and to
phenomenal
get
number 2 to Lando.
It has, and to claw that 1 point, that was, helpful. And
Mm.
I was cheering for that 1 point because the drivers is already done, so who cares? So,
Yeah.
but we were there, and a lady with me, and I have to give her a shout out now. Actually, her name's Guy Lee. She's Chinese, from Australia, and
Mhm.
she is a super fan. And she had an iPad with the F1 Experiences telemetry on there,
Yes.
with the full live broadcast of the dots around the map. If you ever played a video game, you see that in the corner, the dots going around, and that's where the cars are. And then the full telemetry, the times and everything. So she
Yep.
was a fantastic asset when I couldn't get the signal to kind of see what was going on. And we were cheering so hard for Oscar to get past. We were cheering at the dot to get past Yuki Tsunoda, which he did, and then past Albon, and to get that 1 point. And that was phenomenal. So she also gave me this, which is a lovely little keepsake. This is, I think, of Lando and Oscar. And she had so many of these photos printed out, and I kept
Right.
it. So I want to say thank you, Guy Lee, for that. And I hope you enjoy your trip back to Oz. And she's going to Bahrain testing as well. She's a super fan. She goes everywhere.
Well, do you know
Phenomenal.
what? There's a lot of these people now that are making this happen, and I always, myself and my Australian mate Steve, we said that once all the kids have grown up, our plan is to try and do all the races. Well, I've sort of not been waiting for that to happen, Joe, as you well know.
Yeah.
I've just been spreading it across a number of years. But but that is the aim. Is retirement plan is to be doing a lot more races, and if we can be working at them as well, Joe, even better.
Well, retirement plan. Let's talk about Bottas. I mean, not a great finish to his stint there. It was Stake. I mean, yeah, unfortunate to have a lock up. Then he got hit by Magnussen, but I saw him limping home just below me with that tire literally just hanging off the end of the wheel. For one of the guys he is actually the fastest F1 driver in history. This is how he's going to bow out in his career.
Yeah. Well, let's be honest about it. The car that he went to in 2022 after leaving Mercedes because Russell had set up was a disaster, has been a disaster all the way. There's been no investment. The team have lost direction. Obviously, Audi are coming in and starting to take over with Mario Binotto, ex-Ferrari. But they are not prepared to wait, or Bottas basically isn't going to be there to find out. He is leaving, and Hulkenberg is taking his drive, and what's his name? The new Bortoletto, the new rookie is coming in. Bottas, for me, it's not really his fault. He's had the worst car on the track for 3 years, but then the best drivers get the best cars. He got the best out of that Mercedes that he could with the talent he has. He was a great number 2, but of course he won a few races, but no, he's not really done it for me. And the ridiculousness with his Australian style lifestyle and look hasn't really helped him with the seriousness of Formula One, I don't think. But
I think that's the only thing he can do, because you're right, the car's been shocking.
Yeah.
It's all been up in the air. So he's thinking, well, I need to plan ahead of this, because he needed a bit of an image change after coming out Mercedes. But I don't know. You reckon he might be off to Mercedes as a reserve?
Yes. Well, Toto Wolff is still part of his management structure, you see. So Toto's in there. There's a benefit to Toto for Bottas to be doing that. Mick Schumacher's moving on. He's off to do endurance racing, so for Alpine. So there's a window there. I think we will see Valtteri as number 3 driver for Mercedes. And if there's any illnesses or problems with Russell or Antonelli next year, we may see Bottas back. But I think that's really where he's at in his career now. Let's be honest. He's had a great career in Williams, Mercedes, and obviously the latter days in the Sauber. He cannot complain. I think he's done as
No.
well as he possibly could have done with the mechanics that he's been given.
Well, I think, are you talking about Lewis Hamilton here? I mean, because Lewis Hamilton, obviously his last drive for Mercedes, he celebrated with a huge donut and sneaking past George Russell to take fourth with an outstanding overtake at the end there. Look, he's one of the greatest of all time. People can debate that. I think, personally, I think he's the greatest driver. Is my greatest driver, I think.
I'd
And I know
agree with you.
that's up for
I'd
debate,
agree
but
completely, mate. Totally agree with you, Lewis. The stats show it as well.
yeah,
But you know, as for me as a Brit, following the Brits, and I've followed Mansell and Hill, and obviously Coulthard as well. Even though no, he's
I
definitely.
saw DC yesterday.
Of course you did, mate. Wearing his
Well,
white jeans.
he's
Of course you
everywhere.
did. He's everywhere every time, mate. So Lewis has done everything, and he's done it as a gentleman. And you mentioned it before. He had an amazing drive yesterday, coming from 16th on the grid to take fourth. Fourth, wasn't it? That's absolutely right. Just to pass his teammate Russell. I think Russell was a real gentleman yesterday, and gave allowed Hamilton to come past. He was there getting his autograph. He was there on the grid shaking his hand, saying thank you for just being a big inspiration. That's what Lewis is, and he will be to the next generation of drivers as well. And one day we may see these records being broken, but he's still got more wins in him. He's possibly still got a championship in him. So it's not the end of Lewis, it's just the end of the Lewis and Mercedes
I
partnership.
think so. There's that fire. I could see that fire today in him, and I haven't seen it for a bit, and this was amazing. I thought, oh yes, he's going to be in that car. Paul Science, I keep saying Paul Science, it's true. He's had a great season, and let's see how he gets on. But yeah, we are. I mean, I was saying this. Well, when the announcement was made 6 months ago, let's teleport, and it's gone so quickly, Darren.
Mate, it was before the season started. They announced it. It was in February.
You're joking, was it? I thought
I'm
it was
not, mate.
summer.
No, mate. It was so Sainz announced in July, but he was waiting for that Red Bull
Right.
seat. He wanted
Right.
Perez out. Yeah.
Yeah, but so time travel does work, guys.
Here it is.
If you just wish hard enough, it can happen. Yeah, I mean, there's some other bits. I mean, Liam Lawson had a poor pit stop. But Lawson looked great. He's been bedding in. There's questions about what's going to happen with Perez and maybe if he's going to go, or Yuki. So let's see what happens in Red Bull. That might be before the new F1 event, which they're going to host in February at the O2. Are you going to go along to that, Daz?
Well, funnily enough, my wife was talking about it, but I think I'd only go if I was working. These events, I'm there to see the racing and see the cars fly by. I'm not really, if somebody wanted me to go along, and Joe, if we did it for a podcast thing, it's worth doing. But I don't know. It's all a bit showbiz, and I do a lot of showbiz, to be fair. And I love the idea of it. But
the idea, isn't that the idea though, to not have these separate launches everywhere, but to have it consolidated in one piece? Are they all going to do their launches at that one event?
From what I believe, yes. And obviously, since COVID, in this hybrid way of working, like we are, Joe, right now in the podcast with you in Dubai and me here in the UK, we're hybrid working, and they've been doing lots of launches really just for the cameras. The fact that there's going to be people there with an audience and they're all there together, the unity of it, to me, is where we've got to get back to. It's like, people just not working in the office. The best productivity is when people are together. And you and I, Joe, we're better together when we are rather than separate.
It's true. I don't know how I'm going to get excited about the new Sauber car. I mean, it's a strange one. These launches are a bit strange, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, mate. It's all about the sponsorship, to be honest with you, or the driver lineup. That's what it's about. Seeing the drivers in the suits, seeing the new liveries of the cars. It's all just aesthetic stuff that allows the sponsors to promote.
But it's going to be the first time we're going to see Lewis in the red overalls.
Correct.
Oh.
Correct.
Oh, I can't believe I'm going to be a Ferrari fan next year. What's happened? I never liked Ferrari. Oh, I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Oh,
Oh,
it's a
mate.
muddle. It's a muddle.
Well,
Okay. Well, let's see how
yeah,
that pans out.
mate.
Go
I
on.
just want to jump on, mate, to actually how Pierre Gasly has driven the last few races ever since they got their second and third podium in and Brazil. He's just been there the whole time, in the top 5 or
Mm.
6. He what did he get? He got 7th, sorry, didn't he? Qualified 5th, but got 7th. I think Gasly has been superb, and I've got to be honest with you. I know he's got a drive for Alpine next year, but I sort of think Red Bull need to be looking back at him as well right now, because I know Sonoda's doing the test. Is it today or tomorrow? For Red Bull, they were talking about Liam Lawson, but has Liam really been better than Sonoda this second half of the season in the RB? They've been talking about Colapinto,
Mm.
who's had the Williams drive, but he's had a number of crashes and non-finishes, and yesterday was yet a non-finish yesterday as well, out on lap 1. So, mate, I think Gasly should be having a shout at that drive and buy him out of his contract at Alpine. I really do. I think he's been brilliant this half of the season, as has Hulkenberg in the Haas.
It's weird. They've had this new lease of life. These guys. It's like, I don't know where it's coming from, but I
From
don't know.
the
It's
top,
that
mate.
hunger. It's well, yeah, but it's the drive to survive. Literally, it's the hunger in these guys are thinking, no, I've got years left in the tank. Say, I don't know how. I always think these guys are like my age, but they're not. They're like
Tell me about that one, Joe.
mid-20s. It's weird,
Tell
isn't
me
it?
about-
You watch football and you go, oh, no, there's like 21. I'm like, what?
Well,
It's
I'll tell
mad.
you a funny one, mate, because when I first went to watch Formula One, so 1992, Nigel Mansell at Silverstone, and Nigel has always been 20 years older than me or so, but when I look at him now, he's in his 70s, but you see him in 1992 on the podium, and he still looks old then. Yeah,
Oh, big bushy moustache and everything.
exactly.
Yeah.
32 years ago. So he was 30. I suppose 38 is old, isn't it, for a sportsman? But yeah, 38, 39 when he won that world championship. But they just, I don't know what it is. They just are what they are. You don't look at them and think they're 20 or 30 or 40. They just are these elite sportsmen, mega fit. Hamilton, I know he's changed his looks with his dreadlocks and so on, but fitness wise, the same with Alonso. They don't age, do they? And it's got to be
No.
fitness and nutrition, mate, and that's why we get confused.
That's where we're not winning. That's where we're losing it, aren't we? Yeah. You're
I'm
doing better
working on
than
it,
me.
mate. I'm working
You're
on
doing
it,
better
Joe.
than me. Christmas is coming, so we're both screwed. I don't fancy a vegan Christmas though, so Lewis isn't coming over for Christmas dinner. But yeah, look, the season as a whole, then, I think it's been pretty. I mean, I remember telling Zach Brown in Davos in February, look, you go for it. Joe says you can do it, and look what happens. So a little word of encouragement can always help.
It was all down to you, mate. And no, and Joe, when Harrison, Steve from Australia, and myself were driving to qualifying to Silverstone this year, there was a papaya McLaren supercar next to us at the traffic lights. Who's driving? It was Zach Brown. We gave him a little wave. He waved back to us as well. So you're not taking all the credit.
Well, there we go. So Team Racehouse, McLaren, we want some of those team winnings, please. And we want an invite to your events if you're listening. But look, it's not just been about McLaren, but that has been that resurgence, that resurrection of this incredible brand. It's not a brand, it's a racing team. I mean, with such heritage, and it's about right. This is the whole thing about years ago when Lewis had that massive winning streak, Max had that winning streak. How can F1 level the playing field? How can they, make it so there's more competition, there's more overtakes, there's more unpredictability to make an exciting sport? Because whenever anyone's winning all the time, it is boring, right, for the fan. But they've done it with the cost cap. I think certain rule changes, they've changed the tracks sometimes. So there's either they've added a DRS or they've added a new corner, or they've smoothed out a corner, they've increased pace. We've seen fast circuits like Saudi. I think it's the fastest street race in the world. And there's more tracks potentially coming online. One in Africa. I was talking to some South Africans last night at the Muse concert, and they reckon it could really gear up. I mean, within 5
Mm.
years, we could see the first African, well, a new dawn of an African Grand Prix.
Yeah.
You know, where's the sport going, Darren?
Well, Joe, Africa, I've been wanting, and I know Lewis has fought for Kyle Army to come back onto the circuit again. I remember it from the early 90s. We've talked about it. But also that it's got to replace something. In the news that the Dutch Grand Prix is going to run, I think, for 2 more years at Zandvoort, Joe, which for me was a great experience to be there. And back in 2021. And so I'm gutted that that's going, because it's a great venue. But Formula One has to evolve. There's, I think China at the Shanghai circuit has just signed till 2030. We know that Monaco has signed till 2031 as well. And you and I have got some great memories down there from this year.
And they've moved to June. They've switched over with Canada,
Yes,
I think. So
Canada.
you can have Miami and Canada in the same couple of weeks or something.
It makes complete sense for just nothing more than flights. You know, the amount of people that have to fly, you're just reducing the carbon footprint again. It's common sense. I love
time zone.
I love the fact that the you know, the Extreme E Championship that some of these teams have got, and everything travels by boat. And with Formula One now having 3 or 4 sets of everything, I don't know how they travel, but I think the least amount of air travel Formula One needs to be going down that line. But
it's great for carbon, but it's great for cost as
exactly.
well, because the cost cap and you can reduce costs. That's great.
Yeah, I totally agree. But what I would say, Joe, going back to the competitiveness of Formula One, we've seen domination from Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari, Vettel in the Red Bull, Hamilton in the Mercedes, and now Verstappen in the Red Bull. I think we are now moving into an era where if we don't see dominance by McLaren, we're going to see, like we've seen the second half of this season, 4 teams, any 4 of them can win any weekend. If Aston Martin with Adrian Newey can just bring themselves into the party like they looked like they were going to do for the first half of 2023, with Alonso getting podiums, they need a second driver. They need to put Drugovich in there. He's looking good. FP1, there were some great rookies driving in FP1. Some I'd never heard of. Browning in the Williams. I don't know who he is. And of course, Hadjar in the Red Bull. There's still talk about Hadjar. Now, did Hadjar go on and win the F2 championship this weekend, Joe? I didn't see, but I know he had to do FP1 and then go and win a championship. I'm not sure. I would have to look. You're there already. I can see you Googling it, Joe. So if I had 2 hands, I'd do the same thing. But
why are you giving away all my secrets? What are you doing?
I don't know what I'm talking about, Joe. I don't know what I'm talking about. So
unbelievable.
I know. I've just let the side down, Joe.
Mainly.
Oh. Did he not win it?
We got the constructors. I don't know. That was
no,
the
don't
F2
worry.
Constructors.
Don't worry, mate.
Bortoletto. Bortoletto won it.
Bortoletto, what a season he's had then. So he goes and wins it. He's in the Kick Sauber for next year, but of course it's Audi in 2026. So he's got a drive. He's very happy. Well done to Bortoletto for that.
Let me just say about that. He's 20 years old, Brazilian. He was the F3 champion last year and he secured back-to-back titles after finishing second at Yaz, while French rival Isaac Hadjar stalled on the grid in the season's final feature race. And it was down to the wire pretty much. But he stalled, so that's not a great place to stall.
Well, do you know what? The coverage of the F2, the coverage of the F1 Academy stuff, and Formula 3 as well, I think on Sky TV, mate, has been phenomenal. And as you found out yesterday, when you're actually at the track, you miss Martin Brundle and the team at Sky because they are so good. And Ted in the pitch, you do miss it because they are so informative and they bring it to you. And when you're watching it on the track, I know last year, Joe, when I stood under the bridge at the hotel, I was literally counting the seconds as the cars passed me, with Verstappen in first, Leclerc in second. And that's how I followed the race. But I had to really concentrate. And I thought to myself, if only I had that stopwatch. That's how they used to do it on the pit wall. It was all just watch the car and stopwatch. That's how they did it back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s and before. We don't know how lucky we are to be watching Formula One in this era, Joe, and I cannot wait to sit down and look all over it and digest it. It's been a phenomenal year.
It's been a phenomenal year, and we couldn't have done it without some certain people. Obviously, massive thanks to our fans and our listeners and our watchers. In particular, I want to give a shout out to Dave Burrells, who's always texting and tweeting, and he just put something up on LinkedIn about Racehouse. He bought one of our mugs as well, and the merchandise is up on racehouse.cc. So Dave has been a fantastic support. So thank you, Dave, for always
Thank
being
you, Dave.
there. My mum watches this live all the time. And so
hi,
she
Mum.
gets a notification. Hi, Mum. Thanks for that. And other people who we've met and talked about this. And I think, whenever I say, oh, I've got an F1 podcast, I do it with my mate, and they're like, oh, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, let me take it down. And people were taking it down last night. So it's one of these things where when you're truly passionate about something, it really gets across. So that's my thanks. What about you? Have you got thanks from this season, Darren?
Well, do you know what? My kids, Lucas and Harrison, have just joined in with me with my love of Formula One, and that's been a total joy. So I must thank them. When you talked about the dots around the track as well, we use that same telemetry for the go-karting, mate. So I look at that every weekend. Well, every weekend we're out, so I'm used to that world. So using it in Formula One from the F1 app as well is something I'd recommend to everybody to follow. Don't watch the television when you're at a track. But anyway, back to shout-outs. There's my mate Steve from Australia, who shared Silverstone with us this year, and I know he listens in as well. And we went and saw Bruce McLaren's headstone at Goodwood down at the track there in West Sussex, and I'd recommend that for any big McLaren fan to go down there and check out the track where Bruce McLaren sadly lost his life. But really, at the end of the day, Joe, it's those 20, what have we had now, 23, 24 drivers in those cars this season. They've been phenomenal, and my shout out really, I want it to be Lando, but the shout out is to Max. He has been the best driver of 2024 and deserves the championship. So Max Verstappen, well done.
Well, I thought you were going to finish how I was going to finish. So the biggest thanks is to you, Darren, for being my Max Verstappen.
That's so funny.
I was going to say thank you for everything this year and being being a reliable partner. But I guess Max gets another title. Wow. Okay.
Oh no! And I was really struggling as well, Joe, to come up with the big one, And of course, oh mate, I've just shown my true colours there, haven't I? Oh mate, I can't believe it. Yeah. Okay. Although Joe, the last 24 hours, 48 hours, knowing you're at that track, without me this year, that's been a tough one to swap.
So anyway, was Max. Listen, so was Max.
Max was at that. Yes, he was. You're right. No, so Joe, listen, you're absolutely right though. This Racehouse was your idea. You've invited me in back in the summer of 2023. We've had some absolute joys along the way. Whether we're chatting online together or whether we're in person at the tracks together, we've had a brilliant time. So to share it, yeah,
and to share it.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. I'll pass it on to Max. And thank you for watching and listening to us. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Twitch, and we will be back next year. Next year, there is that F1 event in February for your calendar. Then there's the pre-season testing in Bahrain, and then the first race of the season will not be Bahrain. It will be Melbourne. Ramadan is a thing in the Middle East, so it changes and moves through the season. So it's going to start a bit earlier next year. So they're going to start with Australia, and then they're going to come back and hang around the Middle East, I think.
Yeah, back to the old school start, Joe. Yeah, back to the old school start, Australia. I like it.
The Aussies will be happy about that. I don't think we've had that since COVID, was it? When they cancelled the COVID?
That's exactly it. They were there in Melbourne for the race when they all got locked down and they were all sent home.
Yeah, and I think that was fair enough. I know a lot of people disappointed, but there we go. Look, thank you again for watching. Thanks to all our listeners and watchers and sharers. We will be back 2025. Lewis in the red, Signs in the white and blue, and who's going to be the driver champion next year? Would it be Max? Would it be Lewis? Would it be Lando?
Or could it be Oscar?
We could just keep going on, couldn't we? It could be any of them.
We could. We could. Will it be Perez?
It won't be Perez, that's for sure. And that's our Racehouse guarantee. But thank you so much. We're going to sign off. We will see you next time in 2025. But from now, from me, Jolie.
And me, Darren Reeves, take care.
Take care.